is a reality.
And you're okay doing all of that through this process that you criticize Republicans for using? These are major policy changes.
CNN host Dana Bash attempted to gotcha Bernie Sanders for wanting to use his power to actually feed children and help people. Now, I'm being a little hyperbolic here. Of course, they played the devil's advocate, or in this case, sort of a hypocrisy attempt at a gotcha here. But I'm going to show you the clip. Actually, I have several clips here to show you. This first one, though, gets into Bernie's idea of using budget reconciliation to pass an agenda where it would only require, under reconciliation, 51 votes to pass, as opposed to the 60 that it would currently need. So on that point, Dana Bash brings this up.
You mentioned that Republicans have used the so-called reconciliation process before, like in 2017, to try to kill Obamacare. You accused them of abusing the process back then. You said, quote, the function of reconciliation is to adjust federal spending and revenue, not to enact major changes in policy. But you alluded to this. You are the chairman of the Budget Committee, or going to be. You are already talking about using this tactic for things like paid family and medical leave, for universal pre-K and childcare, for climate change, tuition-free college, eliminating student debt, and the $15 minimum wage. How is that not what you criticize Republicans for doing?
Well, the devil is in the details of what we want to do and when we want to do it and when we have to do it. What we are talking about, by the way, are two separate reconciliation packages. Number one, the emergency one right now.
Right.
Get direct checks, get those checks into people's pockets right now so they can feed their families. And make sure that people are not evicted from their homes. Make sure that states have the funds they need to get vaccines into people's arms. That's what we've got to do right now. And then as soon as that is done, we have to rebuild this economy. Unemployment is much, much too high. Wages are much, much too low. There are structural problems that we have ignored for years. Climate change is a reality.
And you're okay doing all of that through this process that you criticize Republicans for using? These are major policy changes.
These are major policy changes, but the devil is in the details. And I criticize Republicans, for using reconciliation to give tax breaks to billionaires, to create a situation where large profitable corporations now pay zero in federal income taxes. Yes, I did criticize them for that. And if they want to criticize me for helping to feed children who are hungry, or senior citizens in this country who are isolated and alone and don't have enough food, they can criticize me. I think it's the appropriate step forward.
Now, the false equivalency here is just incredible. The idea that ripping healthcare away, that Republicans trying to use reconciliation to rip healthcare away from tens of millions of people, is equal to Bernie Sanders trying to get help to people during a pandemic. I mean, this shows you just how limited CNN is, or any cable news network is, when it comes to trying to criticize Bernie's goals. Because notice how they will never actually debate him on the efficacy of what he is fighting for. They'll never say, hey, does it really make sense to guarantee health care to everyone during a pandemic? Does it really make sense to have affordable childcare for parents? Does it really make sense to feed children who are hungry? Like, they're not gonna do that, because there's no argument there. So the only thing they have to argue really is, I guess, process. Back then, you said Republicans shouldn't use reconciliation to rip healthcare away from people, but now you're using reconciliation to actually help people. Do you see the hypocrisy here? Like, it's really it's all they have. So this is why I don't like. I was kind of laughing about this before, because I think most people see through this. Most people understand, with all of those bullet points put on the board by CNN. It's like a $15 minimum wage, healthcare for all of these various ideas that Bernie's pushing. Like, the idea that people see that and think, oh, look at Bernie being a hypocrite, fighting for us while fighting against the GOP when they wanted to rip healthcare away from us. Like, I think most people get that Bernie is actually fighting for you, and that cable news really has nothing to work with here. Now, I want to get to the next clip here. Bernie responds to what he thinks will happen to Democrats if they don't go far enough.
If Democrats don't pass these sweeping changes you're talking about, do you think that they will lose control of the House and Senate in 2022?
That's what history tells us. What history tells us is that when Clinton won in 92, 2 years later, the Democrats didn't do as much as they should have. They got swept out by the Republicans. Obama won in 2008, 2010. Republicans decimated them at the polling booths. Look, Donna, this is not complicated stuff. We're in an unprecedented moment in American history. Tens of millions of people are hurting. People are watching this program, do not have food in their cupboards to feed their kids. They are sick. They cannot afford to go to the doctor. They cannot afford the outrageously high cost of prescription drugs. They're worried about climate change and what that will mean for their kids and future generations. That is where we are right now. And the American people say, we elected you guys. Do something. Improve our lives. We are in pain. We are hurting. That's in red states, Republican states. It is in Democratic states. It is in rural America. It is in urban America. It is Black, white, Latino, Native American, Asian American. This is a country that is in pain right now. And if Democrats, who have slim majorities in the House and the Senate, we got President Biden in the White House, if we do not respond now, yes, I believe 2 years from now, the Republicans will say, hey, you elected these guys. They did nothing. Vote for us, and they will win.
Bernie is absolutely right. And the Democratic Party leadership especially needs to listen to him right now. Now, of course, they have their own interests, their own corporate interests that don't want the Democratic Party to go far in actually delivering people these universal programs. But if you care about winning, you actually have to deliver people results. So as he brought up, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama lost their majorities because they did not go far enough in their first 2 years. Joe Biden here has, the backing here of the excuse of using the pandemic. Joe Biden, a guy who in, normal times would not be pushing for any big issues. Right now, he can use the excuse of the pandemic to put a lot of this forward and get otherwise conservative or moderate Democrats on board that would otherwise not support these issues, supporting them right now because people are in a pandemic and they need the help immediately. So based on the first few days of Joe Biden's presidency, he's pushed a lot of executive orders out there that are solid, especially issues on climate change. At the very least, getting back to the bare minimum when it comes to getting back in the Paris Climate Accord, canceling the Keystone XL pipeline, pushing for necessary steps when it comes to dealing with the pandemic. So he has pushed a lot forward when it comes to bringing people back to, or bringing the government back to a baseline. But there is a lot more to go, and Bernie Sanders being able to use budget reconciliation to only require 51 votes to get a lot of this through is, I think, the clear path forward here. Now, one more clip. This is, of course, we got to bring this up, or Dana has to bring this up. Bernie, this meme that I covered, I think, over a week ago now, it's still going on. So Dana Bash brings this up, but look how quickly Bernie turns it to, again, what he cares about most, helping people.
One of the things that has seemed to have been a distraction from the pain you're talking about is you on the internet over the past week. The fact that you have become a meme, the picture of you sitting at the inauguration in your mittens, thousands of memes. That's just some of them on the screen. I have to show you some of my personal favorites. Demi Moore. She put your picture in her famous ghost scene. Jennifer Grey, she played Baby in Dirty Dancing. She put you in the corner, Senator. And, you're even a selfie with us on election night. So my question is, are you having as much fun with this as the world is?
I am. And not only are we having fun, what we're doing here in Vermont is we're going to be selling around the country sweatshirts and T-shirts, and all of the money that's going to be raised, which I expect will be a couple of $1 million, will be going to programs like Meals on Wheels that feed low-income senior citizens. So it turns out actually to be a good thing and not only a fun thing.
Look at that. Took him 2 seconds to turn the conversation back to how he is using this to benefit people. Raising money for Meals on Wheels. Amazing. So once again, I'm so happy Bernie has stayed in the Senate. There was a time there where he had potentially would have been in Joe Biden's cabinet, which at first sounds great, but ultimately when you think about the kind of pressure he would have been under and the limitations he would have had when it comes to being a part of the Joe Biden administration, he can't exactly speak out and, at least not publicly, forcefully trying to push Biden in the right direction. So him being a senator, obviously with a 50-50 split, there was no other, decision here. He had to stay in the Senate. So him now being the chair of the Senate Budget Committee, wanting to use budget reconciliation and pushing the Biden administration and Democrats on these issues, I think this is the perfect place where he should be right now. And once again, Bernie shows us why ultimately he is the one senator that you can trust.